Thanks for that, Julia. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to your KITS Webinar Wednesday. My name is Franklin, and I'm the Product App Specialist for KITS and your webinar host. It's really great to see all our KITS community participating every week as we show you those tips and tricks in KITS you need to know to becoming that supercharged power user. So big thank you to our KITS community, and now, as always, let's welcome Julia.
Thank you, Franklin. Hi again. My name is Julia. I will be your webinar moderator for today. So that means if you want to chat online, ask questions, I'm going to be monitoring all our incoming chat box messages and questions. So if you'd like to submit any questions or feedback or say hi, you can definitely check out the GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of your screen. So I'll be here typing away, and I will be collecting your questions for the very end of our Q&A session. So yeah, feel free to send anything you'd like, and we will answer those questions at the end.
All righty. So today what we'll be doing is we'll be demonstrating the AutoCAD Dwg SIF import feature. So Julia, what's on the agenda for our community today?
All right, so on today's agenda, we're going to be going over those AutoCAD and DWG requirements. So first we're going to be reviewing the DWG requirements, what exactly you need to meet to start this process. Then we're going to be looking at importing the DWG, the SIF file, and everything into our KITS web version. So if you have a KITS mobile license, you have access to this web version. We'll definitely jump into that and tell you how to access it. But we're going to be looking at that. And then lastly, we're going to be publishing that imported project into your KITS mobile app on your iPad. So let's first begin with the AutoCAD file import requirements before we get started and get going with this. So before you start doing this importing, you're going to need to meet some certain requirements with your AutoCAD file. So on the screen you can see the top 5 things that you need to do. This means that your file has to be authored with 2020 CAP, Giza, Project Matrix, Z-Axis, or CT Designer. It also needs to contain no more than 1,500 furniture items. It needs to have a drawing area no larger than 100 feet by 100 feet. It cannot contain items specified with structural options, and only items specified in model space will be imported. So if your file goes against these requirements, you will face an error when you're importing. So we've also included these requirements in a helpful handout that you can find on the GoToWebinar control panel. You can download the PDF and you can keep these requirements when you need them.
All right, thanks for that, Julia. So what we'll need today is we'll need access to KITS web. So you'll need your login credentials. It's the same login credentials you use for your KITS mobile tool. And you'll also need your iPad, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go into opening up my CAP Designer here, or my DWG file. All right, so here what I'm looking at is typically what I would receive from if I was working with the design team. It'd be a layout fully specified in the authoring program by choice by the design team. In this case, this is a CAP file. And in this CAP file includes all the attributable information that I need to create a project in KITS. So what it's going to carry is basically that same information that you see in CAP, and it's going to be able to import into KITS, and KITS is going to be able to translate what it actually sees in terms of this DWG file. So what we have simply here is a 2D drawing of the plan. What I like to do is whenever I receive it, or whenever I'm working with my design team, I'd like to request that they actually do 2 copies of this DWG. Or this of this layout, basically 1 in 2D and also 1 in 3D. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to act designer here, and I'm going to take my layout, and I'm going to simply copy it, and I'm going to place it in my scene. Okay. And sorry, we have just a little bit of lag, so please be patient with this. I'm going to be going through several different platforms here. We're going to be going through AutoCAD as well as the iPad going back and forth, because I'd like basically what we want to do is we want to show you all the process in how a design team would actually get the DWG file into kits. All right, there we go. Okay, so let's make sure we get this in here. All right, so I do have my copy of my layout, and what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to make sure I can take this copy, this 2D plan, and I'm going to make it 3D. And the reason why I want my design team to prepare my layout in 3D is because when we actually import it into kits, kits can recognize both 2D and 3D files. However, any 3D files, because it has, let's call it location nodes in the actual symbols themselves, if there were any items that were placed above a work surface or a specific height, kits will be able to translate that height. Now, when the layout is actually in 2D, everything is flat. So if it doesn't have a generic location, then what would happen is it would appear on the floor. So in this case, when the actual file that we're working with is in 3D, what's going to happen is kits is going to be able to recognize that 3D, and it's going to be able to place the actual furniture layout as it would appear in the 3D as well. Okay, so right now I currently have that populated as a 3D layout, and here if I just orbit, you can see that, oh, they're actually both in 3D, so there you go. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is, just to demonstrate this, let's convert this back down to a 2D so that you can see here we're now working with both a 2D drawing as well as a 3D drawing. Okay. All right. So before I actually import into kits, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save this file so that the new DWG that I'm working with has one 2D and has one 3D. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go and navigate to Kits Web. And I'm going to go ahead and go to Kits Web. Now, for those of you that's new to Kits Web is the, I guess you can say, is the predecessor to Kits and to Kits Mobile. It was the first tool that we created many years ago, many moons ago, and basically it's an HTML version of what you get in Kits Mobile. Today we use Kits Web to supplement Kits Mobile, where we actually only use it to import our DWG files. Okay. Sooner or later, it will be phased out. There is no more development. We understand that a lot of teams like to have the option of using a desktop version of Kits. However, it is outdated, and it doesn't currently have a lot of the new functionality that Kits Mobile has. So, with that being said, we only use it to supplement, what we do with Kits Mobile, and that primarily is with the DWG import. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly go and open up my Kits collaborator. And as you can see, I'm currently using Microsoft Edge. However, Kits Web works best with Internet Explorer. So what I do suggest is that you open it up with Internet Explorer. All right. And as soon as you're in it, what you're going to do is you're going to click into the email there, and you're going to place your login information, same login information that you use for your iPad. And once it's ready, go ahead and log in. Okay, so you should be opening up in what I like to call is the catalog screen. However, because I've been using this earlier today, it's opened up the last place that I left off. But what I want you to do is go ahead and click on Manage Projects, and that gets you into your Manage Project screen. Okay, and under here you can see all the current projects that I currently have saved, and there's a lot here under my Kits Web. Now, these are projects that aren't located on my mobile device. As you can see at the very top here, I'm currently in my web projects view. And as you can see, I also have the options of viewing my mobile projects. So what we've done is we've kept a separation of both web projects and mobile projects. And the reason being is because, again, there were different uses at a time where Kits Web was still somewhat prevalent. However, nowadays, we are phasing it slowly out. So we're no longer creating projects on our side through Kits Web. Again, all we're using it for is to creating import DWG projects. So in this case, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Create Project. Okay, this now gets me into my project details screen. So the first thing I want to do is I want to assign a name. Now, if you joined last week's webinar, I mentioned something that is very important, especially when you're working with several people from your team. In this case, what you want to do is you want to figure out some type of consistent naming convention of your projects so that whenever you share your projects with other team members, you can easily track them based on who designed it, who it's for, what the project is, and the last time it was revised or basically dating it. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go with something that we primarily use here, and that's my last name, client's name, what the project is, and then I'm going to date timestamp it, and that'll be today's date. Okay, so there I have the project name. However, I don't have any files, so what I want to do is I want to click on Browse, and I want to create a project from a single DWG. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Browse, and that's now going to prompt me to open up a file on my desktop. So here we go. Here's the project that I want to open up. Now this is a DWG that's been created. The manufacturers of the cost. And the design team has actually shared this DWG with me for me to actually import into my Kits Web. Now, again, based on what your process is like and whether this is a functionality that you feel that you'll be comfortable in doing, there's several ways of actually approaching this. Your design team can actually do the import process for you, or they can share the actual DWG file, which you can then import yourself, which we are doing today. All right. So here I'm going to go ahead and select my DWG file. I'm going to click on Open, and as you can see here, it's now loaded in my browse bar. Okay. At this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on Create Project. And what Kits begins to do is it begins to recognize the layout that's in my scene, or that's in the DWG, and it's breaking it down in several different zones. So what are these zones? These zones basically represent furniture groups based on where they're located from other furniture, as well as whether they're 2D or 3D. And as you can see here, we have a list for 2D symbols as well as 3D symbols. And if you go down the list, it'll tell you what each zone contains. And what you can do is you can choose from there. So here you can see that I need to I need to import zone 10 and zone 11. So what I want to do is I'm going to click zone 10 as well as zone 11. Now, you can see here that zone 10 also includes some 2D symbols. What these 2D symbols could be are symbols from the manufacturer that don't actually have a 3D graphic to it. Primarily a lot of electrical that comes through, doesn't have any 3D graphics, or anything in particular that, again, is important to the actual layout and is necessary for the actual, again, for the furniture group. So here that I have, now that I have group 10 and group 11 set, I can go ahead and click Continue. Now the other thing too is if I had just both group 10 and 11, what I could do is I can click this box at the very top here in the blue highlighted bar, and that would select anything that's underneath, any zone that's underneath or listed. So again, I just want to make sure that we click 10 and 11. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and continue. So again, what Kits is beginning to do is it's beginning to analyze the actual DWG, and it's beginning to populate it so that it's going to be accessible through the Kits tool. And in this case, this is actually a generic warning that will always appear. Sometimes it'll list any issues that it finds, such as the DWG exceeding the allowed limits, that is the 100 feet by 100 feet limit, or if there are structural options that are included in the manufacturer symbols that are in the DWG. These are all things that Kits will recognize and it'll list it as a warning. In this case, it's just mentioning that there are 2D and 3D symbols. I'm going to go ahead and continue. So depending on the intricacy of the actual project, it will really determine how long it takes to actually populate the layout. So there you are. It's now brought the layout in. As I can see here, it generates a nice thumbnail image for me to preview, as well as it lists all the items that are included in this layout. Here it's giving me the summary version of it, but I can actually click on detail, and I can now view this list in complete detail. The detail here will indicate whether or not there are finishes specified or not. In this case, there are no finishes specified because I just included the DWG. So what I want to do is I want to publish this to my mobile format. So right over here, you can see publish to mobile format, because what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to now use this DWG in my Kits mobile. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on publish to mobile format, and this should take a couple of seconds. So you can now see that this was transferred properly, because I do get a window prompt here indicating that the project has been successfully copied, current project to mobile format. All right. So now that that's done, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to visit our Kits mobile tool on our iPad, and I'm just going to open it up. And there we go. Okay. So I've just shared that project to my tool. So what I'm going to do is, because my tool has already been open, I need to connect to my cloud. So I'm just going to tap on the sync link. That is going to access anything that has been updated on my cloud so that I can actually sync down to my iPad. So I just connected to my cloud, and you should see a number indicate here that we do have a new update to our account. I'm going to tap on the notification bell, and then I'm going to go ahead and tap Sync Now, and I'm going to sync down the new project that's been shared to me. Okay, and depending on how large this project is, it will determine how long it takes to actually sync, but it shouldn't take too long. I would say only a couple minutes. Okay, so my sync is finished. I'm going to go back to the project gallery screen, and there you can see I now have my new project ready for me to use in front of my client. Okay, so this is one way that design can actually share a project with you, and how you can actually take that project and utilize it when you're client-facing. So I'm going to quickly specify this in Kits, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go in reverse, and we're going to share this project back to our designer so you can see how they can actually take that file now and validate it. Okay, so again, I'm going to quickly specify some finishes here. You guys are the designers on your side, so you can go ahead and choose your finishes. Here, I'm going to quickly specify this. Okay, I do notice something here. It looks like the seat cushions for some reason, and this could be because it was in the drawing set itself, has appeared on the actual floor. Okay, so we're going to make sure we correct that. There we go. And it looks like we got one more seat cushion here hiding. And there we go. All right, let's add some finishes here. There we go. And again, we're going to go ahead and finish some of this other stuff. All right, so we're nearly done. Let's get this ped. And lastly, the ped cushion. Great. I'm pretty satisfied with that. But you know what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to add some chairs here. So I'm going to tap on the Add Item menu. And since I know I want to add a Lacoste chair, I'm going to add one from the Affinity series. And then I'm going to use my, oh, there we go. I did a quick search, and lucky enough, those are the only models that actually have AFF in them. So I'm going to go ahead and use VC13. I'm going to double tap on that image. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag it into my scene. And let's quickly specify it now. So now that that's been fully specified, I can actually go to my list view. I can actually validate to make sure that all specifications have been made. I can see that I am missing some here. So I can quickly go and finish those specifications that we can actually go ahead and send this off to our design team for them to validate against the actual project itself. Okay. And we're nearly done there. And that looks like we've taken care of all specifications. Okay, so let's go back to 3D view. And now I'm going to go into plan view. And I'm going to add these 3 chairs to the project. Well, the 2 chairs here. Let's duplicate that. And duplicate it one more time. There we go. Let's go to 3D view. And I'm pretty satisfied with that layout. All right, I can go ahead and create a quick rendering, as always, using my mobile tool. Okay, again, if you're client-facing, you're going to want to use the first rendering option, as this will be the quickest. It'll probably take you anywhere between 10 to 15 seconds to generate. All right, great. I'm going to save that to my photo library. And now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to save this, and I want to send this to my design team. So I'm going to go ahead, tap on the Export AutoCAD Dxf SIF file. Let's go ahead and save that project. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my iPad notes where I've saved the list of the designers that I normally work with. I'm going to go ahead, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select their names. And then we're going to send it as one file. Okay, so I'm going to copy their emails, and I'm going to place it here in the recipient email address. Now, the reason why I do this is because if this is a group that I consistently email all the time, because Kits doesn't retain the history of emails that are used, what I want to do is I want to keep a copy of that somewhere on my iPad, such as my iPad notes, so that I can refer to it every time I need to send any kind of information out to this team. Okay, here I can put, here is the specified file. And then we can go ahead and export. Obviously, if this is a project, you might want to fill in more information. But what we're doing here is we're just going through the motion to seeing what the process is like once you send the file out. All right. So let's go ahead and open up my Office so I can receive the actual file. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that file so that I can go view it in AutoCAD. Okay. So as that's going, what we're going to do is we're going to transition back to CAD, because what we're going to do is we're going to now open up that new file to see what our design team would be getting. Okay. Now, interesting enough, what Kits will do is it'll send out a Dxf file, which is a generic drawing format that can be used across all CAD platforms. In this case, we're going to be opening up in DWG. If you've done this in the past, you may run into issues where you've tried to validate the Dxf file against a DWG and you couldn't do it, and that's because what you need to do is you need to convert that Dxf file to a Dwg file. Okay, so here we're going to go ahead and find the file. Here it is. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this in my desktop. All right, I'm going to go back to that folder. Here's a zip file that was sent out to me. Let's double click it. And now you can see what Kits will do is it'll send a SIF file. It will send a PNG file that has an image of what the project is, and as well as that Dxf file. So I'm going to take all three files and I'm going to unzip it to my folder. Let's go ahead and close that. And now what we want to do is I'm going to go ahead and double click on that Dxf file. So this is the file that Kits will send you. Okay, it's a Dxf file. It's basically lines framework of the actual DWG model. It really doesn't make any kind of sense other than what this does is it translates into a 3D model. So this is what your design team will get. What they need to do in order to use this file is they'll need to resave it as a DWG. So once you click on Save As, automatically what Kits will do is, automatically what CAD will do is it'll allow you to save it as a DWG file. We want to do that, so we're going to go ahead and tap on Save. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close or exit out of this Dxf file. And the reason why I want to close this file is because in order for me to use the new file, what I'll need to do is I'll need to go ahead and open up the new DWG file so that I can transfer it into any larger plan in case I need to validate that. Okay, so even though what you see here is still the same Dxf format, at the very top you can see that we now are working with the DWG file. Okay, now in this DWG file, if I'm familiar with CAP, what I can also do is I can convert these symbols back into CAP symbols. Okay, and that's a matter of just using the plan to 3D or from 3D to plan functions. So here you can see these are the same CAP symbols, and if I were to click on one of the items and then right-click and do an edit attribute, what I can see is the new attributable information that's been created from Kits, as well as the same information that I need so that I can open it up in CAP Design or even Project Matrix for that matter. All right, so there's the new file. If I was the design team and if there was any kind of change, let's just say we needed to copy this workstation and we needed to place it on the opposite side as well. I can quickly do that. And then if need be, I can save this file, send it out to the actual salesperson again, and they can begin that same process. Okay, so if this is the file that the design team had originally sent out, which was now changed in Kits and is sent back, and now the design team has made the revisions, what I can do is, if I'm the salesperson, again, I can go back to my Kits, and let's quickly do this. Create project. Here again, what we're going to do is we want to make sure that we have the same kind of naming convention. And again, with the date timestamp on it. Here at the end, I'm going to put REV for revision. This is just so I know that I'm working on the new file. And now I can go ahead and find that file that my design team has now shared with me. And I go ahead and create project. And you can see that the communication between kits, from CAD to kits, and then from kits to CAD and back again, is seamless. You can now see that it's now recognizing the new layout. So I'm going to go ahead and select all three boxes. We're going to go ahead and continue. And again, we're going to continue from there. Kits is now populating the layout into Kits Web. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a quick mobile share. And then we're going to be able to open up the new layout in my Kits mobile in case we need to make any changes or if we need to present the actual project to our client. So there's multiple ways of actually utilizing this feature to getting down to what the client requires. Okay. And then once this is done, what we're going to do is we're going to quickly take a look at importing one more CAD file. However, this time it's going to be accompanied by a SIF file that has current specifications. Okay, there's the file. You can see here the new parts list. What I can do is I can share this to my mobile format so that I can get those new edits. There we go. Let's go back to kits. Okay, here's kits. You can see that I now have a notification here indicating that I have a project that's ready for me to be shared. So we're going to go ahead and sync that. And we're nearly done. Okay. And let's go back to the project gallery screen. And there you go. There's the new project that's been shared by the design team. So you can see how this project started off in CAD, was imported into kits, was specified in kits, shared back to the design team, where the design team added a new workstation, and then shared it back to the salesperson, and now the salesperson has the final revised layout. All right. So basically, that's what you can do to share the projects with your team, as well as work with the design team, ultimately getting you to close your sales. All right. So last thing we want to take a look at is creating a project. But this time, what we're going to do is we're going to take a DWG file that hasn't been specified, or a furniture layout that hasn't been specified, and we're going to add a SIF file that contains the specifications for the layout so that kits can actually import both and then apply those specifications to the actual DWG file. Okay, so again, what we want to do is when we use that same naming convention, and you can see what I'm trying to do here is some kind of consistency between how we actually communicate our projects. This one I'm just going to call alternate 2, and I'm going to date timestamp it, again, today's date. Now we're going to browse for that file. Here is the original DWG file. We know that it contains no specifications because this is the same file that I used in the beginning that I had to specify in kits. But this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify also from a SIF file. Here's my SIF file. And now I'm going to go ahead and create my project. So again, what kits begins to do is it begins to recognize the actual DWG file. Here's the 2D plan. Here's the 3D plan. I only want to select those items found in the 3D plan. Okay, and it's now going to populate that 3D model into kits, and then it's going to actually look at the SIF file, and if it recognizes any kind of specifications that have been made in the SIF file, it's going to apply those specifications to the actual symbols themselves. So this way, what you can do is you can get a completed copy of the project. It will even retain any kind of pricing information regarding the actual items. So that's also important to understand. Now, this is only for you CAP Designer 2020 users out there because unfortunately, CAP Designer or 2020, they don't retain specifications in the actual 3D model. So every time you specify a project in KITS and you translate it out, it will carry that information because KITS creates new attributes. However, if you create a project in 2020 and specify it in 2020, it does not carry those specifications to KITS. Okay, so it's important that you actually create a SIF file from there so that you can actually import it into KITS properly. Now, for you Project Matrix users, you have an advantage because Project Matrix actually creates and retains any kind of attributable information that's been created using the symbols as well as any specifications that have been made regarding those symbols. Okay, so there's that project. I'm going to go quickly publish it to my mobile format. And again, we're going to go ahead and we're going to sync that project using our mobile. Okay. So you can see here that I now have a 1 indicated again on my notification bell. Let's go ahead and sync that project down. And you'll see it's basically the same project. However, the SIF file contained different specifications. And so what KITS began to do is it applied those different specifications to the Dwg file. Okay, so it's important that whenever you work on any of these files, that your design team shares both a 3D file as well as a SIF file for you to import any specification changes. Okay, and there's the new project. And now you can see again, we have the same project, however, different specifications. I see those same cushions are now on the floor. I'm going to go ahead and adjust that, and we'll fix it. We'll get them up on those on that credenza. There we go. And now that I have this project, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a nice rendering of it. Okay, and that's pretty much it, everyone. We've now shown you how to actually use the DWG SIF file, SIF import file into KITS Web so that you can utilize that layout in your KITS mobile, specify it, and again, close the sale with your client.